They're the father-daughter duo behind the beloved podcast, Worthiness Warriors. Chelsea Austin and Kevin Montgomery are keeping it real with us today, opening up about how they maintain their raw and honest relationship. Being raised by two dads and now becoming a parent herself, Chelsea is sharing what she's learned from her dad, Kevin. And to help us close out Pride Month, they're both highlighting what makes queer families beautiful. This is Advocate Now. Well, Chelsea and Kevin, I want to talk about your podcast, Worthiness Warriors. I love that you tackle so many raw and eye-opening conversations related to love, worthiness, and humanity. But how did this all initially start?
Well, it all started in 2020. I actually started the podcast on my own. I had written my book and was working on getting it published. I'd had a blog way after blogs were cool. I was a little late on that bandwagon, but I had someone suggest to me that I might want to try a podcast because I typically am pretty long-winded. So it's a great format for me to have. And I loved doing it for 3 seasons on my own. I had a blast. It was a lot of fun to meet new people and interview all different types of people. And then after 3 seasons, I just found that I was a little bit bored with the format and a little lonely. And so I called on one of my closest friends, my dad, and said, would you want to do this with me? We have a good rapport. We joke around a lot. This is something we're used to working together. And my dad, being who he is, willingly agreed to come on the podcast and be my co-host. And it's just made it so much more fun. And I think given it also a lot more depth.
I just started with Chelsea, and I'm just like the funny sidekick is basically what I do. So I was just so proud of her because she wanted to make a difference in the world, and this was her way. She initiated it, and she really wanted to help people understand about their own self-worth and how to navigate more easily through this kind of crazy thing called life. So I'm just happy to be there with her and support her in any way that I can.
Well, Worthiness Warriors spotlights love and compassion, which is so crucial during a time when judgment and negativity seem to be so prevalent on this planet. How do you make space for open and judgment-free conversations on your podcast?
I think it's really important to allow people to be themselves. And I wrote this in my book and I will think it for the rest of my life, but I try to remind myself that every single person grows up with their own belief system, their own background, where they come from, and they all believe in that just as strongly as what I believe in. And so while it helps that a lot of the people we have on the podcast are of similar values as we are, when that doesn't happen, I try to tap into that feeling of, okay, they're believing in what they believe in just as strongly as I believe in what I believe in. And I also think that that allows for open and honest conversations, which is more important than being right.
We tried to get Chelsea to grow up with the idea of unconditional love, which is a challenge, but I think she embodies that, and she challenges herself to move forward without judgment and love everyone. And that just makes me very proud.
And Chelsea, you were, of course, raised by two dads. There's been so much growth and progress within the LGBTQ plus community, but there's still a surprising stigma around gay parenting. How did being raised by your dads shape your own self-worth, would you say?
I think it was absolutely vital in shaping my self-worth because my parents were so cool and proud of who they were. It showed me and modeled for me that I can be proud of who I am, no matter who I love, who I'm close to, what I want to do with my life. And they really fostered that self-worth and self-confidence in me. I think my daddy, my dad, Kevin is my dad, and his husband, my daddy, was really someone that built that self-confidence by constantly showing up every day and just telling me how perfect and beautiful and wonderful I am. But dad also fostered that self-confidence and self-worth in me by letting me experience more challenges and working through them and showing that I can do it on my own, that I have the resilience, that I am capable. And I think between the two of them, they fostered this sense of the world is my oyster, but it doesn't come without challenges. And I'll let dad speak to this, but my dad always talked about the gay gift, how he was already different. And so he didn't really have to ascribe to any of society's messages about who he should be. And I think I kind of got that, even though I'm a cis straight woman, I got that feeling anyway, that I could just be whoever I wanted to be because I saw that modeled for me so consistently.
Yeah, Kevin, I want to ask you a similar question. How did raising Chelsea shape your self-worth?
Well, I think it was the greatest joy that her daddy and I ever thought we could have. It just gave us such joy every single day, which made us motivated to go out and be strong people within our community, to be proud of ourselves, because now we have someone that we're responsible for. We have to teach. When you have to teach someone, have a different level of responsibility, not just for yourself, but for another, and how they're going to see the world. So I think when I saw mirrored in her about creating her own self-worth, I think it reflects in mine. It makes me feel like I want to be a better person. I want to feel good about myself. I want to model being a wonderful person in life, so that's who she would mirror. So I think it affects back and forth. I think we affected each other, and I think that's like I said, it was the greatest joy, and that was our motivation, was this joyful bundle that showed up at our doorstep.
Well, Kevin, what would you say though were some of the challenges in bringing up a daughter in the 90s and what was considered a non-traditional family structure?
Yeah, I think that it was challenging because we didn't have anyone really modeling for us how it would work for two guys raising a daughter. So it felt a little bit like pioneering out there, but it also felt very normal. It felt very just like every other family. We had the same issues as every other straight family. We had all the same problems. So in a way, it was different when you reflected and you're out in public and you're two guys with a little girl. You get a lot of questions. So I think there was a lot of answering of questions of how did this come about? But more often than not, when we were telling the story, people were moved and were very accepting. It was more in the abstract when people were talking about in generalities about like religious right and things like that, where we got pushback from people saying they don't think it's right. So we had that, we had some of that pushback, but for the most part, it was people that were very accepting and open and loving. And we had, and more than anything, it felt just like every other family. When you would kind of compare, it was, changing diapers is changing diapers, and kids going through adolescence is kids going through adolescence, and it doesn't change when you're two guys, two girls, one guy, one girl. It's or a straight family. It all seems about the same to me.
And now, Chelsea, you're expecting your first child. First of all, congratulations. Are there any lessons that you've learned from your dad that you hope to bring into this new journey as a parent?
Thank you so much. And I am just so grateful for my parents, because I know I'll be leaning on them heavily in this next chapter of my life as grandparents. And there's so many lessons, but I really do think for me, the most important thing I learned from my dad and my daddy was unconditional love and being there for your child. If you show up, that is pretty much all your child will remember. You can be tough, you can be busy, you can be running an empire, but if you show up when it counts, which is, for little things like the after school recitals or dance recitals, or when they're sad, or when they're having a hard day, or when they want to celebrate, if you show up for your kid and let them know that they're there, that you're there for them, that's really all that matters, I feel, because that's what I remember even my daddy saying, oh my gosh, I was so busy with work, but I don't remember that. I just remember a daddy that always showed up for me.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for spending some time with us today. Everyone, make sure you check out their podcast, Worthiness Warriors. We thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
We were happy to be here.
I'm Sonia Baghdadi. Thanks for watching and advocating. For more stories and content like this, visit advocate.com and advocatechannel.com.